Army Rangers or whatever other military who are like getting tased and they just like drop. So there's two obstacles in this Tough Mudder that have electricity, and the second one is the final obstacle. So it's like right before the finish line, you've got like, I don't know, maybe 20 yards of mud and like probably 3 rows of hay bales you have to jump over. And as you're doing this, there's live wires hanging, and about every, I don't know, maybe 7 seconds, they shoot electricity through them. So most people just charge through it, right? And get maybe zapped twice, and you see some guys going down, some girls going down, they get up and they keep running. But Mr. Wuebker is like very methodically kind of like creeping through, and I'm standing on the other end of the finish line like, what is he waiting for? And so finally, one of the last wires is like going over his forehead as he's like passing through it, and it goes zap, and he just drops like, and just face plants in the mud and gets up and finishes the race. And this is what he looked like afterwards. So it might have been one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Vanity metrics, 51 likes. I'm pretty proud of being electrocuted at the Tough Mudder.
Yeah. So,
My parents were like, we thought you did well at school. We thought you were smart.
so it's like a half marathon with 30 obstacles and some involved electricity. That's a lot of fun.
I totally recommend it.
So anyway, my name is Sean, this is my wife Jamie, this is our daughter Claire. Claire turned 6 months old on Monday last week, so she's pretty cool. This class is a lot bigger than last semester.
Mr. Wuebker, yes. Can we turn one of the lights on, because I can't really see on the phone.
So if I were to ask you to define success, what would you say? Like, who has a definition for you? Like, someone define success.
Achieving what you want.
Achievement?
Of like what you.
Okay.
Happiness.
Happiness. Yeah. Okay. I guess my wife's gonna throw candy at me periodically. That's very perfect. Okay, so happiness. So what makes you happy?
Money.
Money? Okay. So I agree happiness, but then we kind of have to define that because that might be different for different people. So we're all going to have different definitions of success. We're all going to have different definitions of happiness. So money, that's a fair opinion. Anybody else got opinion? Success, how would you define it? For you to be successful, one day you sit back and you look at your life. How do you know if your life was a success?
Winning.
Winning. I like that. Okay, winning. Contentment. Great. Anybody else?
Completed your dreams.
Complete your dreams. Okay. So I like, that's the second time you kind of said the same thing of kind of what you set out to achieve, you achieve it, right? You achieve your dreams, you achieve your goals, you have happiness, you have contentment, you win, you know. These are all great answers. The way my wife and I measure success is getting to heaven. Right? That if success is all about achieving your goal, what's our ultimate goal? Hopefully it's to get to heaven. If it's not, hopefully that does become our ultimate goal. The Catechism tells us, I think probably the second question in the Catechism is, why are we here? So if you don't have any goals yet, the Catechism has goals for you. God has goals for us, and the Catechism tells us the whole reason that we're here, our number one goal and priority is what? Anyway, to get to heaven, but does anyone know the exact answer in the Catechism of why are we here? What's the meaning of life?
To worship God.
To worship God. It's to know, love, and serve God so as to be happy with Him in this life, so that happiness, that contentment, and more importantly, forever in the next life, in eternity. So, to know God, to love God, and serve God. So that's not just some random order of 3 things. It's very important that we know God, love God, serve God. You can't really love what you don't know. So if you don't know God, then how are you going to love who God is? And if you don't love something, then it's a heck of a lot harder to serve someone or something if you don't love that person or that thing. So if that's our ultimate goal, getting to heaven, if that's how we're going to measure the success of our life someday when we're, old and gray or whatever, at any point in our lives, really, just knowing God, loving God, serving God. So, I'm a chiropractor, my wife's a nurse, we're both kind of in the healthcare field. Doesn't matter if we're in the healthcare field, doesn't matter kind of what we do for our careers, our goal is to know God, love God, serve God through what we do, through who we are. So really our goal for this talk today, for this period that we're all together, is to kind of show you guys what that looks like for us in our life. How do we serve? How do we, as a couple, as well as individuals, get to know God more each day, get to love God more, and like I said, eventually serve God. So if if you learn anything from today, it's just going to be kind of how we do things. This is not we're not experts on the married life by any means. We've been married for about a year and a half. We're not experts at being parents. We've only been parents for about 6 months. But we like to think that we're doing things as well as we can, because our ultimate goal is very clear for us, and that's to know God, love God, serve God, so we can be happy with Him in this life and for eternity. So my wife's going to talk a little bit about how we kind of get to know God, or how we, as a couple, learn more about who God is for us.
What would you say is the difference between knowing someone and knowing about someone? Are they the same? Oh,
If
okay.
you have like personal contact, it's like if you know about a celebrity, like if you know them.
What's your name? Nick. So let's say that Nick has a very secret, but very intense obsession with Taylor Swift. Of course, this is a secret because it's highly embarrassing to be a teenage boy obsessed with Taylor Swift. You know, he goes home every day, looks at TMZ to see what Taylor's up to that day. He knows more of her lyrics than his 12-year-old sister. He's front in line to go to her concerts. It's really embarrassing. He knows a lot about Taylor Swift. He knows that she has a weird pinky toe. He knows what time she was born. He knows that she loves Chipotle. I wouldn't call that knowing Taylor Swift, would you? I might call that stalking. Like you could maybe take out a career professional. I saw Mr. Wuebker's coffee mug back there, and he said he just found it in the school. He probably actually got it from Nick. It's the 1989 album or whatever.
Nick, I'll give it back later.
So, in a way, we can stalk God rather than know Him. We can memorize a lot of things about God. You know, we can memorize things that have been written about Him in the Bible, things that other people have written about Him. We can memorize all the rules about God. Would you say that you probably know people who seem to know a lot about God, but that's not all there is to it. Hopefully when you're young, you're learning about God. That's your job of your parents, your teachers, your priests, your family and friends, is to learn about God. But to have a mature spirituality, mature relationship with God is a lot more than knowing things about Him. You have to know Him as a person. It's that personal contact, just like I said. And this may not seem to have anything to do with money or even about marriage, but it does, because knowing God is the first successful step to doing anything well, but especially your vocation. Most of you will probably be called to the married vocation. Obviously, that's what we are. But knowing God is the first part of that, because without knowing God, you're not going to do anything well. And the way that we know God as a married couple, God really makes it easy to know Him if we want to. He reveals Himself to us in a lot of ways, through the Bible, through Mass, through our family, our friends. There's a lot of ways that God wants to make Himself known to us, but you have to kind of go out and get it. So as a married couple, we make sure that we spend time getting to know God, and that means prayer, because you're not going to, like, you can know a lot about Taylor Swift, but unless you talk to her on a daily basis, you're not going to be her friend. And so that would make Nick sad if you didn't get to talk to her on a daily basis. So God wants to hear from us on a daily basis too. But any good friendship is not one-sided. You're not just going to be babbling at God, telling Him what you need and complaining to Him and asking Him for favors. You're hopefully going to be listening. And that's, I think, is the mark of a good, mature spirituality, is knowing how to listen in your prayer life too. So things that Sean and I both try to do are individually spend time, usually in the morning, just setting aside 10 to 20 minutes for prayer. And that means sitting and talking to God, but also listening to God too. And it really is the foundation of our day, foundation of our marriage. And the cool thing about that is that we're doing it together. I mean, we're actually doing it separately. That's the key, is so that we can have one-on-one time with God. But then we'll talk to each other about it. Like, what do you think God is trying to work on with you right now? What are you struggling with? What what's going on in your prayer life. I'm so lucky that I get to talk to him about these things, and I'm not, if Sean didn't believe in God, or if he was just kind of like, okay about the whole God thing, he was just like, whatever you want to do, we'll go to church if it's what you want to do. I mean, there's a lot of married couples out there like that, and that's hard. That's hard. It's got to be hard when somebody's just kind of carrying on the weight. I was thinking of, it's funny that Mr. Wuebker talked about farm animals and pulling weight, because I was thinking about that on my way here. Have you heard of the phrase equally yoked? Does that mean anything to you? Any guesses? Good, you guys are really good at nodding. So yoking is like attaching two animals together, and I don't farm. I just have heard things about farming. Mr. Wuebker's parents could probably tell us a lot more about it, but so to yoke two animals together means they're pulling something together, like one horse or one ox or whatever. I don't know what other animals pull things. Can only pull so much. This is just one animal, one weight. But you put two together, and I've heard that a cool thing happens. It's not just the weight of those two animals, like their ability to pull doesn't just double, it either like triples or quadruples when two animals are working together, which is a cool analogy for marriage. Is it quadruple?
It is. It
That
is.
comes
It's
from
this
Dave
crazy
Ramsey.
thing. Yeah. Like this is a Dave Ramsey story, but it's an actual true fact. If you take two horses and each one can pull like 8,000 pounds, you would think if you put them together, 8 plus 8 is 16,000 pounds. Now, if they just met each other for the first time, these two horses, they could actually pull 24,000 pounds. And if they have been working together for a while, they can pull at least 32,000 pounds, and sometimes more. So 8 plus 8 is 32, if they've known each other for a while.
So you can see that's an okay analogy for marriage. We're not just doing our own thing individually and pulling our own weight. We're pulling weight together to get to our eventual goal, which is heaven. And being equally yoked means we're both trying as hard as the other person. I'm trying to get Sean to heaven. He's trying to get me to heaven. We're not dragging each other. We're not pushing each other like, oh, I wish my spouse would get excited about going to adoration, or I wish my spouse would not complain when we have to go to mass. Like, that makes me sad, but I feel like a lot of couples are in that state, and I'd say we're equally yoked. We know God, we want to know Him more, and we're doing that together.
Marriage is a team sport. I guess a lot of people could relate to being on a team, trying to achieve a goal together. You don't get to pick kind of who your teammates are. Some of you guys are in football, basketball, baseball, whatever's going on right now. And what is golf? Golf's kind of a team sport, and there's individual accolades there, but not like when you're part of a relay or you're one of 11 guys on the field, all trying to achieve victory. So marriage, you actually get to pick your teammate. You get to pick who you're kind of trying to achieve this goal with. But I feel like a lot of times people don't really have a goal in mind for their marriage. It's like, we're married because I met this person, she's great, he's great, we seem to be great together, we want to maybe have a family or other things, but you got to have a goal in mind. A goal is kind of a driving force, and the more powerful your goal is, the more effort you're going to put into achieving it. So, yeah, just as far as getting to know who God is, like Jamie said, it's great to, be partnered up with somebody who's as passionate about God as I am, or getting to heaven as I am. So knowing God, that's how we kind of get to know God. And then the next step, once you know someone, that love really starts to develop. When we know who God is, when through prayer that relationship grows, when through instruction, whether it's a retreat or a great book I saw Mr. Wuebker passing out, The Lamb's Supper. There's many great Catholic authors out there and speakers with material to just kind of ignite your love for God, because it explains who God is, and God is love. So when we love God more, then the next step obviously is just service. So we're a couple of service. We like doing things for other people. Simple ways that we do service. We just give our time. We give our time to our family, to our friends. Just because we have a baby doesn't mean we're at home all the time. Just we have a baby. Guess all the fun's over, and we're just gonna be home all the time raising this thing. we just put her in the car so you can take her with us. Highly portable. So we were out on Saturday downtown at, I forget the name of the place, Barrel 31, because somebody put together a little birthday party and a lot of our friends were there. So we just brought clothes. We don't think anything of it. In fact, I used to think like, people are going to wonder why I'm walking into this restaurant bar at like 8 o'clock at night with this 6-month-old baby, but our friends actually think that it's inspiring. They think it's great that we maintain close contact and communication with friends, that we still go out and do things with our friends and our family, even though we got a 6-month-old baby. So just giving them our time, time, talent, and treasure are the 3 ways that we can kind of tithe and give back to God. So our time is very important. We want to make sure that we have enough time for just the 2 of us so that we can grow as a couple, grow as a family. But it's also important that we share that time with other people who want our time. Being here and sharing our time with you guys is a privilege, and we consider it a blessing to be able to share time with you. As far as sharing our treasure, that's something that we are going to hit on. This is a personal finance class, and so we do want to talk about marriage and money. So Jamie will talk about that here in a little bit. But sharing our talents as well. Everybody's got unique talents. Some of you might be very athletic. Some of you might be, very likable for whatever reason. Maybe God's given you some sort of charisma or likability. People just seem to kind of gravitate towards you. Maybe you're a little more on the quiet side. Maybe you don't feel like you've got a huge circle of friends, but you're very, I don't know. Shoot out some talents for me. Be humble. Humble is just the truth. So if you or someone else, why don't we just point out someone in class maybe and recognize some of their talents. So who's got something nice to say about somebody in class?
Mom is just a good guy.
He's a good guy?
Yeah.
So it makes him maybe influential a little bit? I
Yeah.
think he could, what'd you say his name was, Bob?
Mom. My name's Andrew.
Andrew Baum?
Andrew
A-U-M?
Mom.
Cool. So his likability maybe makes him a little influential. You think that he's got kind of some accountability to have towards God for, hey, Andrew, I kind of made you a likable guy. Maybe you should influence people to do good for others rather than influence them to do bad, right? So he's a likable guy. Who else has talents in here?
Joe Wallace over here is dedicated.
He's a dedicated guy. All right. So dedication. What do you got back there?
This guy, Joey.
Joey.
He's really smart and all that stuff.
Joey's really smart. All right.
Sorry, this is not my talent.
All right. So Joey's an intelligent guy. Joey's got brains. Maybe Joey's gonna, author some great material someday. He's gonna be a speaker. He's gonna change the world with his brains. Who else? What's that?
Pretty good. You just confident.
All right.
You just confident.
Hey, you know what? If he's good at FIFA, then he's good at FIFA. Humility is truth. If anybody disagrees, they can try to take him down.
You're pretty talented. It's pretty impressive.
So the point is, we've all got talents. Scripture, which is our, the Gospels are our kind of our guide for how to live life. Parable of the talents, it's right there. God gives out talents to 3 different people. 2 of them use those talents to go out and do things with it, right? Share it, spread it, make more. And then one guy says, you know what? I was kind of afraid because you're just, and I didn't want to mess anything up, so I just kind of kept it, and here it is back. Like, here's that same talent back to you. And it doesn't go over very well for the master who gave him the talent. So I don't want to show up to judgment one day and look God in the eye and say, I know you gave me this talent and that talent, but I was kind of afraid to do the wrong thing, so I just kind of sat on those talents and didn't really use them for anything, right? I was very self-serving with my time, my talent, my treasure. So, just we try to be people of tithing, of giving our time, our talent, our treasure back to God. So, you want to talk a little bit about the treasure part of it?
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go back to this love thing a little bit too, since we're talking about knowing God, loving God, serving God. The reason I've had this up the whole time is kind of give an image, like a face to love, not just talking about these lovey-dovey romantic feelings between us, because that's awkward. Nobody wants to hear about that. But a good homily at a wedding mass should have the priest talking about the cross. And that's why I love this picture, because it's the two of us, it's Jesus in the tabernacle, and it's Jesus on the cross. And something we learned before getting married, but we're definitely learning in action now, is that love is about sacrifice. And you can only love something or someone to the extent that you would sacrifice for them. And obviously our model is Jesus giving absolutely everything on the cross, but we're supposed to be giving everything to each other all the time. Like, you know, people say like marriage is 50-50, but I think what we learn is marriage has to be 100-100. We're supposed to just be giving to each other all the time. And so that's why I have this picture. Another example of love being sacrificed. We kind of learned that the day Claire was born. It's a pretty long day, pretty tough day for both of us. There's a lot of sacrifice. Pregnancy is a lot of sacrifice too. It's a lot of work for both of us. But at the end of the day, we have this awesome thing, and this thing gets more awesome every day. And then another aspect of sacrifice is the not so fun things, like pretty gross stuff happens sometimes. I took Claire to church choir practice with me the other night, and she was just happy as a clam playing on the floor, and I looked down and I think I dropped what I was holding, and my jaw dropped open. I was like, wow, thanks for that, Claire. So that means, if you don't understand what's going on here, that means she pooped, it went out the top of her diaper, through her clothes, through both of her blankets, and onto the carpet. It was awesome. But we love her. There's nothing we would not do for her. And I mean, if we picked up a random baby off the street and had to clean up its diaper, like, okay, the baby's cute, so that helps, but it's like, I don't want to do this. This totally stinks. Literally, it's awful. But this is our child. We love this child, so we do things for her that we wouldn't always do lovingly otherwise.
We can leave this picture alone if you guys. Sure.
We may have some of these videos live if you're really interested. So the other thing I brought for us to look at.
Click the X at the bottom of the screen. There you go.
So we thought about blanking out our numbers, but whatever, we'll be totally transparent with you guys. This is our monthly budget. It's like a love-hate relationship. We both are a little bit anal about setting it up on Excel, making sure our numbers add up. And I'm sure you guys have learned some about the budget, how important the all-powerful budget is, how great it is for your life. So we make a plan every month, and important parts of our plan are, obviously there's necessities like we have the food category, which this month I think we spent a lot on food. We have paying our bills. We have paying Sean's student loans. We have doctor's office visits. We have our insurance. We have dry cleaning, fiddle lessons for Sean, haircuts for me. We have all that stuff on there, but we also have this donation section. And so part of giving of ourselves, our time, talent, and treasure is literally our treasure, meaning we tithe. The church tells us to give away 10% of what we have, and so we give 5% to our parish every month and 5% to these other charities that we really like to support. We have pro-life charities in there, we have Life Team, we have Life Runners, we have Focus, Simple House, which is a homeless charity. Claire's really excited about all this stuff. And so really, part of our financial theory, our application in our life is that our money is not really our own. It's everything we have is given to us by God. Absolutely everything in our lives, with the exception of our own sin. So we shouldn't treat our money as if it's ours. We earned it. We should hoard it. We should hold on to it. Like, we worked really hard for it. Of course we worked hard for it, but how did we work hard for it? With our gifts and talents that God gave us in the first place. You know, like, Sean's really smart. He's very compassionate. That makes him an excellent chiropractor. He brings home money because of that. And nursing is kind of the same way. I have to use my brain, I have to use my heart, but did I cultivate those all by myself? No. So really our money is God's money. And so the important part about that is putting it on the budget so that we plan around it. Rather than like, oh, what do we have left over that we can give this month? That number is quickly going to approach 0 or less, because you can always come up with more fun ways to spend your money. Do I like writing a $500-some check to the church every month? No, it doesn't feel awesome, but that, I mean, in a way it feels good, but mostly it's like, oh, I could have bought something, or I can't even think of anything right now, something awesome. We could have painted our dining room. These are the things that are really exciting when your parents get excited. So you have to plan around it or it's not gonna happen. But we do put things on there like date night, entertainment, and eating out, birthdays. You just have to plan for it all or else it's not gonna happen.
Jamie, before you get into the entertainment section, can I just mention one or two quick things about tithing? Just from chatting with you all, I can tell, like some of you, it ranges from I'm very enthusiastic about tithing to I have mixed feelings to this is stupid, how am I ever going to get ahead? I just want to mention two quick things. One is J.D. Rockefeller, the richest man in human history, who came out to have something like 2/3 of $1 trillion. Some people love him, some people hate him, but everybody knows that he tithed all of his life, starting in his early 20s, when his company was deeply in debt, and people did not know if his company was going to survive or not. The man was a very, very sincere Christian, and that's what he did for the whole course of his life. And again, you know, some people love him, some people hate him, but it's indisputable that he was A, the richest man in human history, B, that he tithed in his early 20s when he was in debt. Draw your own conclusions. Another one I'm going to mention, and I'm sorry that both of my examples are selfish, but I want to take this from a different standpoint. There's a think tank in Washington, D.C. called the American Enterprise Institute, and it's led by a man who's got a PhD in economics. And he believes that the data show that people who give away $1 get roughly $4 back in the rest of their life. One way or another, that's about where the average tends to be. And I think it kind of plays into that thing that I had you do on Friday, the quiz on the givers, the takers, and the even traders. So I just want you guys to kind of like put that in the back of your mind and ruminate over it, if you would. And then I guess we can get to the fun things like date night and signing up for Tough Mudders.
Sure. Yeah, you gotta have some fun built in. You know, that's, again, it's just part of what builds our marriage. Going out and having dinner, you know, spending the money to enhance our marriage. Because like Jamie said, it's not our money, it's God's money. Does God want me to have a sports car? Does he want us to have like an enormous house or anything like that? Only in as much as it's going to serve him in the long run. So if we spend money on going out to dinner, we're going out to dinner because it kind of helps us regroup as a couple. It helps us kind of go have fun as a couple. If you know, I'm spending money on a Tough Mudder banner, Jamie's running a 10K or something like that, these are all things that help us achieve other goals we have of being healthy, of staying fit, because you know, healthy body is a body that can serve God more and has more energy. So you know, we've got different goals that kind of fall into that serving God, but again, it's all about serving God. So, you know, I like that our biggest chunk on our budget is our tithing section. I've been tithing since, you know, I had a full-time job when I finished grad school, and I've never not enjoyed, you know, tithing. So I know that, like Mr. Wuebker said, there might be even these people in this room that are kind of on the fence about, like, I don't know, I think 10%'s too much, or I don't even think we should really have to tithe. You know, I used to live with, you know, a house full of guys, and one of the guys was very anti-tithing, thought it was just really silly. And no matter what I said, no matter what good points I thought I made, I couldn't convince the guy. So if there's people in here that don't think tithing is important, I'm not going to be able to convince you either. All I can tell you is that it brought me so much joy. Just giving in that capacity it's easy. And sometimes I feel bad. It's like, well, I just kind of check what do you do? Like, well, what am I really doing? So we look for other avenues to serve in our parish, especially by being involved with the choir. You know, my wife has a beautiful voice, and so it's a no-brainer for her to be in the Scola. I just happen to, you know, be a person, and they need people, so they let me join too.
He's better than Claire.
But so we sing in the choir with our church. We're involved in other kind of organizations in our church too. So sometimes I feel bad about it. Just kind of check and, you know, like, oh, that's all I have to do to be a good Catholic. Great, you know. So it's just it's it's intentional. We just want to support our parish. Doors don't stay open for free. It's very easy to go to Mass and to just think like, okay, the church is here to serve me. But you know, how do you think they keep the lights on? How do you think they provide materials for the community and for the parish on spirituality and other things? So the church needs our financial help. So don't scoff too readily at tithing. It's very, very, very important from the financial standpoint, but also remembering that if you don't have treasure, at least you've got talent, you've got time. You can give one or all three. So
another kind of one of our systems that we work with, we figure our budget. We went to a workshop some months ago called the Family Workshop, and we were like, we only have one kid, we're not that frantic yet, but we really like the people who are teaching it, and we thought we'll learn something to use for the future. And it was such a cool thing in that it had us develop basically a mission or a vision for our family. And once you have that, you can really base every decision you make for your family off of, well, does this fit our mission? And it makes it a lot easier to turn down, like, say we were just crazy busy, we had obligations, we had something every night of the week, we were just run ragged, then we could really look at everything we were doing and say, well, that doesn't line up with our mission, so it's gotta go. And so we just kind of summed up our mission in bullet point form. I'll hit the highlights for you. Like we've already said, we are a Catholic family whose ultimate goal is to get to heaven. We are Christ-centered. We emphasize prayer, humility, service, humor, evangelization, so spreading all these things to the people around us. Intentional living, meaning basically everything we're doing has a purpose. We try not to waste our time or waste our efforts. And our short-term goal, which actually this is a component of our vision anyways, our mission, which is healthy living, but we were kind of focusing on it for the first few months of our mission, and we're continuing with that. Going into Lent, we're really focusing on our diet, cleaning up our diet, being really, really clean, trying to abstain from a lot of unhealthy foods, and that goes with our mission, but hopefully it'll allow us to use it as a sacrifice during Lent, because Lent's supposed to be about giving things up that will hinder your relationship with God, like get in the way of it. And so when I eat half a carton of ice cream by myself, that kind of it may seem odd, but I do think that gets in the way of my relationship with God, because that would just mean sitting there, you know, doing exactly what I wanted to do, not doing something that would really nourish my body or spend my time well, or, you know, nourish Claire's body. I'm eating for her as well. So, yeah, so every Sunday night, the two of us sit down, and when our kids are older, we're going to try to involve them in this to the extent that's appropriate, but we go through, we have things like little bullets that we want to look at, like how was your prayer this week? How was our communication as a couple this week? How was your eating? How was your sleep? And we each answer, we have like a color system that we grade ourselves, and then we look at, did we do better, did we do worse, what do we need to work on? And it's good for me to know, like, well, Sean doesn't think he's been going to Mass enough during the week, and I know he wants to get to Mass more this week, so I should help him with that if I can, you know, like, make sure I'm taking Claire. I'm not asking him to babysit or not babysit, asking him to be with Claire so I can go work out because he wants to go to Mass. Or vice versa, if I'm telling him I really need more time to work out this week, then he's probably gonna, you know, say, well, I'll take Claire to my meeting so that you can go to the gym. And stuff like that. So it's a system. We like to have systems to keep us in check, keep us in control of what's going on.
Yeah, kiddos, you guys can all relate this to the goals that I'm having you do once a month. We did a January goal, you have a February goal, we're going to do March, April, May, June. So you can relate it to that.
Like my wife said, having a mission statement is really important. Is anyone in here kind of like I must say yes man, I don't mean it as a derogatory thing, but does anyone in here has trouble saying no to people? Like, yeah. So you sometimes feel like a little bit overwhelmed, like, holy cow, I can't believe I just got into that. Okay, no more yeses. And then you turn around and someone's like, hey, can you help out with this new committee that we're putting together? You're like, I'd love to. And then they walk off and you're like, crap, I did it again, right? So when you have a mission statement for your life, so again, at the top of our Frantic Family board is this little whiteboard, and at the top of it is just a mission statement, like 3 sentences long that just says who we are and what we're about. So that when people come to us and ask us, can you get involved in this, or can you do that, or can you help us with that, if it does not fit our mission statement, then we say no, okay? And, you know, we say no in a loving way, and if someone's absolutely in need of help with something, we can help them find someone who is able to help them. But if it doesn't have anything to do with evangelization and service, and doesn't allow us to be humble, and, you know, doesn't have anything to do with being Christ-centered, you know, then we're probably not going to get involved in it. So you don't have to wait till you're married to have like a mission statement for your wife. Just kind of think of what's important to you right now. You can kind of make your own mission statement. So this is really, I mean, this is for everyone, but especially for the people who just raise their hand and say, yeah, I kind of spread myself too thin sometimes. Come up with your own like 3-sentence long mission statement that just says, who am I, what's important to me, and then if somebody approaches you with something and it doesn't really fit who you are and what you're about, then you can say no. All right, so let's pause right now and just kind of open it up for any questions that you guys might have.
So you have like a bunch of things written on your like mission statement, but how do you keep from like either being too broad or too specific?
That's a good question. You know, it actually starts with kind of like a bullet point system. So really it's just like, what is the most important thing? So I don't know if you give yourself 5 things or 4 things or 6 things or whatever. But if you're writing a page long of like who we are and what we're about, then it might be a little bit too broad. So just kind of narrow it down to maybe like top 5 things of like what's important to us, what's important to us in our life. So for us, I know it's at the bottom of this list here, but health, like healthy intentional living is one of the kind of the words or phrases in our few sentences. So it starts off by just saying, desiring heaven as our ultimate goal. We are a Catholic family committed to a life of prayer, humble service, spreading the gospel through humor, and just healthy, intentional living. So those are things that are important to us. It's important to us that we take care of our health. As a chiropractor, if I'm, I don't know, if I'm not very healthy, how am I going to convince other people to be healthy? And you know, same thing for Jamie. And like I said earlier, the healthier you are, the easier it is to serve, the more energy you have to give yourself to the field. So I guess the short answer would just be thinking like the top 5 things that are most important to you, and then craft some sort of a mission statement that encompasses those. Good question. Any other questions? Can be as ridiculous questions as you want to ask, like what's the stinkiest diaper I ever had to change? Yes.
Was that St. Therese?
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, that's a parish where I grew up, so that's where I got
Good.
It's right next to me.
Cool. Yes.
Are you good at floppy backs?
I hope so.
It's literally what it is.
Wow.
It's yeah. So chiropractic, just real quickly for those of you who don't know what chiropractic is, a chiropractor. It's like I did pre-medical, like for my undergraduate, with an emphasis in exercise physiology because that was fascinating to me. So I didn't want to study just biology. Most people who go to medical school, they study like mostly biology because to get into medical school, chiropractic school, osteopathic school, physical therapy school, all these other health center programs, even nursing, you've got to take a lot of biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, physiology, physics, and all those kinds of things. A lot of those sciences. So it only makes sense to major in something like biology or biochemistry or something like that, because to get your undergraduate degree, you only have to take a handful of extra classes. Well, exercise physiology kind of fit that same mold. I did have to take a few extra different classes, but it was worth it for me to not have to take like, I don't know, zoology or other, then you can take zoology for both of us. But some people, we all have different interests. So, but chiropractic, it's like being a medical doctor, only instead of using medications, you optimize the body's normal physiology. So a medical student might take lots of pathology, which is the study of diseases, give everything like a name, a label, like, oh, are you having this symptom? Okay, then you're either having this or this, and here's the medical treatment for that. Take this many times a day, come back and see me in a few weeks. Oh, you have these symptoms? Okay, then that means you have this condition. take this medication and then come back and see me, and this should take care of it. So that's kind of more of a medical approach. Chiropractic approach is more centered on normal physiology, like, oh, you're feeling this, this, and this? Okay, well, a healthy body doesn't function that way. A healthy body functions this way. So we need to find out what's causing you to have these symptoms, and what can we change about your life to have you feel normal, right? So my wife, she's in a hospital setting. She deals with a very small percentage of the population who are either born with something, or they suffered some sort of a trauma, or they have some sort of like genetic condition that's manifesting, and so they're in a crisis mode. And when your house is on fire, you call the fire department, right? The fire department comes in, they just like put the fire out. And then you're left with kind of just smoldering rubble sometimes, depending on how crazy the fire is. Somebody's got to come in and help rebuild that house. So she's more on the emergency side of things. I'm more on the lifestyle side of things. So I deal with the other like 90+% of the population who are having health symptoms because something's wrong with their environment. They're not drinking enough water. They're too stressed about life. They don't exercise. They eat garbage. They have, certain dietary sensitivities that they don't even know they have. So it's more about just kind of being detective and saying, how can we optimize your normal function and physiology? So way more information than you probably could know, but yes, I'm really good at popping backs too. Only in so much as it helps. If that's the reason why someone's having ill health because they've got nervous system dysfunction because their back is misaligned, then yeah, we'll realign it. So.
And I just want to mention that these two have been a godsend in my life whenever I've wanted to, say, run another marathon, or, do I want to do P90X or something else, or, hey, I want to turn my diet inside and out. I mean, any random physiological health and wellness question that you can think of, I've been able to go to these two. And, Sean said something to me once, which I wish everybody would have. He said in the future, maybe everybody will have about 7 or 8 health professionals working with you as a team. Our typical American model is wait till something breaks and then go and fix it. And his model would keep you like healthy and fit and injury-free. And the idea would be is like you'd have a doctor, you'd have a dentist, you'd have a chiropractor, maybe you'd have like a mental health practitioner. You'd have 7 or 8 people who are all there as your team to keep you happy, functional, fit, stress-free, optimal, you name it.
Sure. Yeah, it's not your doctor's job to keep you healthy or to make you healthy. I know it'd be easy to kind of think that, like, well, yeah, it is, like, that's what my doctor does. I feel sick and go to my doctor, he makes me healthy again. The doctor doesn't make you healthy. Your body makes you healthy. The doctor just helps you identify what's kind of screwing up that normal health that you're supposed to be enjoying. So, like Mr. Wuebker said, the healthcare model, it's like you're in the middle. Like, here's you right here, and then here's me as your chiropractor, here's your medical doctor, here's your dentist, here's your personal trainer if you need one of those, here's your friends and your family, like your social circle. Like, your social health is very dependent on like what kind of passion, what kind of purpose you have in your life. So, but again, at the center of it is you and your responsibility. So nothing is more frustrating as a doctor than when people come in and they have health issues and they want you to fix them. And then they come back in a couple weeks later and they're like, I felt really good for a little while, but then everything just kind of came back. And I said, oh, you drinking more water? Are you doing those little simple exercises that takes like 5 minutes to do? Like, are you spending 5 minutes a day doing some stretches for your back or your neck? Or, no, I haven't really done any of that. Like, then get out. Like, come back when you're doing these things. Like, I'll give you another adjustment. You're going to feel better, but you're going to feel better for like 3 days, and then you're going to have the same problems again. Because the issue is not your back needs to get popped. The issue is you sit at a desk all day, you have horrible posture, you sleep on the couch every night, fall asleep watching movies while you're drinking soda and eating chips and whatever else. Like, these are the issues. So if people don't change those things, they don't get healthy. So. Any other questions?
Well, can I just tie this into personal finance this way? Save yourself $750,000 in your 50s, 60s, and 70s by aiming for good health now. Spend a little extra money on the right food, the right exercise now, and avoid $750,000 in medical bills when you are you know, my age and a little older.
My wife really loves when I throw Claire up, especially the other day when I threw her up and clapped and then caught her. My wife thought that was the worst thing you could ever do, but she likes it sometimes. Any other questions? About being a parent, about being a spouse, about about going to grad school, about, you know, just kind of living
Money,
out.
things that we prioritize.
Where did you go to grad school at? Well, I did my undergrad at Washburn and Topeka, then I went to chiropractic school in Dallas, Texas, at a place called Parker University.
How many years was chiropractic?
It was, when I went through a 3-year accelerated program, so we took like 30 hours a semester, all year, like we did trimesters, so 9 trimesters. So it only took 3 years, but it was essentially like 9 years of undergrad crammed into 3 years. So they don't do that anymore. They don't let people do that anymore because it was intense, but I was glad to be able to get in, work hard, and get out in 3 years. So it's a 4-year program now. So you kind of go to undergrad for 4 and then 4 of chiropractic. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, how do you blend your money into marriage without like fighting about like what you want to spend it on?
That's a good question because we didn't necessarily address the fact that money fights are a huge cause for marriage problems. So I was telling my wife on the drive up here, like I wasn't going to hammer you guys with statistics. I know statistics are a good thing because, you know, if somebody tells you, hey, 95% of the time if you do this, you're going to be successful, oh gosh, I want to know what that is because if it works for other people, it'll probably work for me. I don't know what percentage of marriage problems come from money or the stat that I do know is that 100% of people who want to have a good marriage, 100% of people who want to get to heaven will get to heaven, will have a good marriage. So it's not so much money that would cause us to fight, it's just that communication breakdown. And money is just an opportunity to get stressed, to get frustrated, and to kind of take it out on somebody. You know, like, oh, I got a headache because money's tight, and oh, you're spending it here, well, you're spending it here, and then it turns into a big fight. So the budget helps. The budget helps because we know exactly where the money's going. We can talk about if we do have a concern that one of us is maybe spending too much here or here, we can talk about that. You know, if our grocery bill is like consistently $150 higher than what it's supposed to be, we can talk about, you know, are we shopping at the right places? Are we looking for deals? Do we need to start couponing? You know, like, so it's, as long as we just continue to communicate and to be able to just talk to each other lovingly, and you know, then it doesn't really matter how tight our financial situation goes, but the budget really helps. And then just having good, healthy, open communication really helps
And the communication thing is key. Like, say we make our budget for the month, we allocate every dollar that's going to be spent, but then something comes up, Sean will be like, hey, I have an opportunity to buy a road bike. It's a really, really good deal. It's $800, and to me that doesn't sound like a good deal, but I don't know anything about road bikes, so I just kind of trust him on that. It's like, it'll cut down on our gas bill, and it'll make me healthier. Is it okay if I go in and buy it? It's a great deal.
It was a $2,500 bike that I got for $900. The guy it was a few years old, but he had only used it on his trainer mostly, so it didn't even have a lot of outside wear. So it was a really good deal. And I haven't ridden it to work yet, even though that was one of my, he's like, oh, if I ride it to work every once in a while, I'll pay for it. But it was right before winter, so in the springtime, all right.
And so, yeah, we overspent that month, but we had a good reason to. We have opportunities to make more money when we need it. So we just have so many common goals, like our goal of paying off our mortgage in a reasonable amount of time is more important than like eating out a lot, and we both agree on that. So as long as we have like the big rocks in place, like you know, staying out of debt and tithing and paying for, me working a few less hours because I want to be home with Claire. That's important to both of us. So we agree on those things, and the little things are pretty easy to deal with as they come up. And the fact that we're forcing ourselves to talk about it every week, like, makes things pretty manageable.
I'd say my biggest money mistake that I've made in my life was going to chiropractic school without home money and just borrowing a lot of money to go to school. Because that student loan is just huge. And fortunately, I'm in a situation where as a healthcare professional, there's like a 20-year loan forgiveness where you just pay what's required, and after 20 years, they forgive it. And I mean, it's that big of a loan that I'll be paying on this thing for 20 years. And by the time I'm done paying it, I'll have paid it a couple times over because of interest rates, so I won't feel bad like I'm stiffing the government because I've somehow like weaseled out of money I owe them because I waited 20 years. They'll get their money back and then some, but if I could do it all over again, I would have probably taken 2 years off after undergrad and just worked. Just worked. Saved money and gone and just paid for school. So student loan debt, I know like the situation is a little bit different for y'all when you head to college. I don't know the history of student loan lending and all that stuff, but I do know that it's really kind of come to a head, and people have realized we got to do something about this because so many people come out of school with just tons of debt and no job. Like I didn't really think about it. I just thought I'd borrow this money, I'd go to school, I'd come out and have a job and pay it all back. It doesn't work like that. So if I could do anything different again, it would be I would have not taken out any loan money for college. I would have, if I had to, which I did, because I paid for undergrad all by myself. Which is my family just didn't have any money for me to go to college, so I worked my butt off in college and saved my money, and I paid cash every semester for undergrad. But then when I went to chiropractic school, it's like, several $1,000s. I have to borrow this, and I did, and several $1,000s at a moderate interest rate doesn't ever seem to go away. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just want to kind of give you guys a brief history of student loans because it's going to come into play in terms of like how maybe a few of your parents are going to advise you. Your parents are probably my age or a little younger or older, and when we were going to college, the advice was, hey, just take out a student loan because student loans are small and they're cheap. And that was true back in the day, 30 years ago. Something like they said like the student loan was the same price as a Ford Mustang. I mean, that would basically pay for college. And since then, I think like college education is now 4 times the price of a Ford Mustang. Ford Mustang kept up with inflation. College has been something like 4 times worse than inflation. And so here are some of the differences. If you are in my generation, and if you have not read up on this, you're not paying attention to the presidential election, etc., like you're just not in tune with the culture, you don't really understand that it's not the same bargain that it used to be. You're probably going to give your kids the same advice that grandparents gave your mom and dad. Your mom and dad heard, hey, just go to college, take out that student loan, you'll pay that sucker off in about 3-4 years, you'll have like this high-paying job. College graduates make $1 million more over the course of their life. That's $25,000 a year compared to everybody else. So it's a good deal to take the student loan. Okay, so that's what they would have said. But times have changed. They've changed enormously. A college education is not worth what it used to be. People found out in 2011, after the recession, that half of all the graduates could not find a job. So you would step out of college, maybe at $100,000 in student loan debt. You absolutely cannot get a job at that point. Times have just changed radically. So we have to sort of take that into account. It might have been a bargain in 1986 or 1996. It might have even been a bargain in 2002. It's not a bargain anymore. So we'll probably talk about this more as the semester goes on.
So that would probably be my number one money mistake. My second one would probably be waiting too long to invest money, You hear compounding interest. I know in this class you've probably heard that a few times. Just, anytime you get a job, you have money, put some away. Again, I don't know what the stat is on, like if you start putting money away when you're 25 instead of when you're 27, by the time you're 65, you've made however many hundreds of thousands of dollars more just because of the compounding interest of that. So the sooner you can put money into some sort of IRA account and invest it so that it continues to compound interest, do that. It took me forever before I started putting money away, but my wife did some looking into kind of what we're putting into retirement. I think we put close to 15% of our monthly income into retirement, and so by the time we're retired, it should be a nice chunk of change, but I wish I would have got started sooner. It also took me a long time to start budgeting, or at least to start budgeting correctly. I always kind of wrote some things down, like, well, I got this bill and this bill and this bill, everything else I can just kind of use however I want. So I wish I would have kind of created a budget system a little sooner. So not taking out so much money for graduate school, starting a budget sooner, and then starting to put away some retirement sooner would be the three things I would change if I could go back and do it all over again. What do you, Jamie doesn't really have a whole lot of money mistakes because her dad, who was going to come speak to you guys, but school got power outage and back over summer other, so he was supposed to come that day, so you'll get him later on. Very smart guy financially. I didn't really have that kind of guidance, so I doubt my wife has similar money mistakes, but I don't know if you have anything you want to share, like what you would do differently if you could.
Oh, you know, I started working full-time when I was 22. I didn't get married until I was 27. And I kind of worked on a budget in the meantime, but if I had actually been budgeting and saving, I could have put a lot more, but we could have paid for half our house in cash at least if I had actually been like putting my paychecks where they should have gone.
Were you just doing so well for yourself that it's kind of like a non-issue? You know, like I'm coming out ahead every month, what's the big deal?
Yeah, and I didn't even keep track for so long. I was just like, well, my rent and my bills are less than what I make, so whatever.
You're like a healthy person who doesn't bother to count calories or anything because why bother?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was doing. I lived at home for almost a year after I graduated, and so I saved money there. And then by the time I left on my own, I was like, man, I'm rich. Just because I made money, so I thought I can do whatever I want with it. But luckily, I didn't have any student loan debt. But it doesn't change how I could have been more responsible.
You guys kind of went over mistakes. Do you want to mention like 2 or 3 things that you feel have really, really worked for you well?
Well, we got some basics out of it. We took a Dave Ramsey class, this Wuebker taught our class. Before we even got engaged, we took the class together, so that really helped us align our goals, like right from the start. When it was time to start preparing for marriage, we knew, like, yeah, we want a 15-year mortgage at what's the other piece? You know, we want to put 20% down on our house. Like, we had these goals right away that we knew we wanted to make a budget together. A lot of marriage stuff is like that we witnessed other people go through is like, hey, money is really important in marriage. You guys should think about starting making a budget. And we're like, we're there. Okay. So that really, really helped just have somebody teach us the basics, like, because really managing finances is not hard. It's all about discipline. So once we learned a few things you have to learn, like, it's just a matter of every month making sometimes tough decisions, but mostly like, no, that makes sense. We're going to do that.
Yeah, I think just kind of a key word is sacrifice. Sacrifice carries such a negative connotation, I feel like. But if our marriage was not built on sacrifice, it would be a sham. Like it would fall apart from no time. I mean, think of if our marriage was all about me looking out for me, and Jamie looking out for Jamie, and me being concerned about my happiness and what I want to do, and Jamie kind of the same thing. How's that going to work, right? Sometimes two people get married because it's like, oh, we love each other, or oh, we met each other, and we seem to sync, you know. But people change. You tell me, like, if we're married for 50 years, that we're going to be the same people that we are right now. We're not even the same people we were when we met, 4 years ago. We're better. Like, we're growing, but we're different people. So sacrifice is huge. Sacrifice when it comes to finances. Like she said, it's more important to us that we pay our mortgage off faster because it's something that is accruing interest. So the faster we pay it off, the less interest we have to pay. Instead of our budget being $100 a month for dining out, so we don't go out to restaurants 3 times a month. We go out once, maybe twice if the restaurant's cheap enough because we got like a $50 budget for going out to eat. Because it's more important, instead of having $100, we do 50 here, and then that other 50 can go towards paying off our mortgage. You hear people talk about just when you're in college, just eat ramen noodles and walk everywhere and everything. Well, ramen noodles aren't good for you, so I wouldn't recommend eating ramen noodles. You can eat healthy and eat affordably, so you don't have to eat trash to save money on food. But save money on doctor bills in the long run. But just kind of pick and choose where you spend money. Do I want to go out partying with all my friends and spend, $50, $100? Or could we find cheaper things to do? Do we need to go out and blow money to have fun? Or can we make a little bit of a sacrifice and save that money? So sacrifice in marriage, sacrifice in finances, the degree to which you love something, I feel, is directly related to your sacrifice. When Claire was born, it's a love, like Jamie said, a lot of you are going to be called to married life as your vocation. You might be blessed with kids someday. When I was your age, I didn't think about that. Somebody brought a baby around, I was like, oh, cool, a baby. Like, you want to hold this baby? Not really, but if you need me to, I guess I could. Like, that is just kind of, that's who I was and where I was when I was a junior or senior in high school. But when Claire was born, my gosh, I've never felt that way before. It's like a love that I'd never experienced, and I started really kind of to think about why that was. And it's because I've never had to sacrifice as much as I do for her. Like, she's totally dependent upon Jamie. When it comes to me and Jamie, we're very dependent upon one another, but Jamie doesn't need me. If I die tomorrow, Jamie can figure stuff out, right? It's gonna be very hard on her. If she passed away, it would be devastating. But I'm not waiting for Jamie to change my dirty diaper. I'm not waiting for Jamie to feed me. I can take care of myself. Claire can't. So it's just, we've given up so much to be parents in a way, but it's such a joy, it's such a blessing, and the only way I can explain that is it's because of that sacrifice. Like, we're just totally giving everything we have and everything that we are to her.
I don't really think of anything we've given up that I miss anyways.
Yeah.
I've given up the ability to go out to the bars with my friends whenever I wanted to. That wasn't healthy for me anyway, so that's a phase of life. That phase is over. This is way better.
Yeah. So again, it's just lives change, people change. The culture would tell us that love is just like this feeling that just kind of overwhelms you, and you can't help who you love, you can't help who you fall in love with. It's ridiculous. You absolutely can. And I don't mean this to sound like I'm not a romantic at heart or anything like that, but to just think that you have to sit back and wait, and you'll know the person when you see him, and you just be so overcome with love, and you're just gonna be happy for the rest of your life because you're in so much love. Love is a choice. Love is, right? Love is a choice. You have to work at it. It takes work. So, and the biggest part of that is just sacrifice. It's realizing that I care more about these two ladies, and I would do anything for them. I would give up anything for them. And love is the result. Love is the result of that sacrifice. So, any other questions?
I've got one that I can think of, and then I have a tiny writing activity for you guys to do. And it's this. When you've observed other couples, what are 3 of the most fatal mistakes you've seen?
One that comes immediately to mind is putting the other person down in front of their peers. I feel like, unfortunately, women do this a little more than men. There's this culture of the husband is so, you think of your average sitcom, the husband is so stupid, he just screws up all the time, the wife is constantly on him about it. Unfortunately, I do see that a lot. Just making, for the point of making a joke, entertaining people, it can be hilarious to insult your spouse in front of your friends, but is it ever worth it? Absolutely not. For men especially, they need to be respected, and they crave that respect even more than women do, so I'd say that's one.
Yeah, I don't know, making it all about, again, let's go back to not sacrificing, just making it all about you and making it all about your happiness. I'm gonna tell you about how you're failing me as a spouse because, you know, my needs aren't being met and you're not meeting my needs. And, you know, just being so self-centered in a relationship, it's not healthy because if you don't feel like your needs are being met, I guarantee the other person's needs aren't being met. And this goes for friendships as well. So if there's an issue between you and a friend and you think like, gosh, why so-and-so being such a, you know, pain in the butt, chances are they're reacting to a way that you've been making them feel, you know? So don't look so much at like yourself and how your needs aren't being met. Just always make it about the other person. Any relationship where you make it more about the other person than yourself is going to be a successful relationship. And if it's not, then that other person just crazy and just move on to another friend. But yeah, I would say just being self-centered, being very selfish in a relationship is never good.
I have a question for the students here. Okay, so see if somebody can guess what it is. Whenever they go to predict like who's going to get divorced and things like that, you know, you can observe couples and they get them on videotape and all that. And like couples who fight, you know, of course, like they can say certain things about like, are they going to get divorced or they're not going to get divorced. It really sort of depends upon like how they bicker with each other. But there's one thing that's actually communication style that's worse than bickering. And I'm wondering if you guys can guess what it is.
Not fighting at all. Or
Silence. Yeah, silence. They call it stonewalling. That is absolutely, it's actually considered worse. This was a long time ago, but I remember reading a study that pointed out like the TV show Roseanne, which is a very, very old TV show. They always clashed, and people thought, well, this is a terrible example of marriage. And they said, surprisingly, statistically, it sure beats this other kind, where we're still fighting, we just do it by not talking with each other. We don't communicate, and we expect the other person to read our mind and then to fix things and to make things better. And you're just never gonna get to $1 million that way, to bring it back to money.
A word of advice for the guys, you know, for future relationships or maybe even present relationships. Women need to know that everything's okay, right? So between my wife and myself, if I'm upset about something, you know, sometimes, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but it's just like, I just don't want to talk about it. You know, maybe it's your parents are like, hey, we got to talk about this, or, you know, if you're, you know, somebody just wants to talk to you, you're like, yeah, I need you to leave me alone because I just need to like process this right now. I just can't talk to you right now. Jamie needs to know that everything's okay. So the way to handle that situation is to say, look, I just want you to know that everything's okay, that I love you, but I need to think about this for a little while, and we will talk about this, you know, later tonight or something like that. Rather than just being like, just don't talk to me, I need to think this over. Because it's just not good. Now, maybe not all ladies are that way, but in the book you read, it's certainly the case for my wife, a lot of the marriage stuff that we've kind of been through, and she says, look, that's kind of the way like women are wired. They need to have that security. They need to know that everything is okay. So as a husband, one of the things that I've learned, because I didn't always do that, and Jamie kind of had to let me know, like, look, I need you to reassure me that everything's okay. So communication, huge. That whole stonewalling thing doesn't work because she needs to know that everything's okay and that we're going to talk about it and that she's safe, right? That even though I'm upset about something, everything's okay. I'm not going anywhere. We're going to work it out, but it's very, very important.
Jamie, could you give us your take on that too,
Yeah, I
please?
was going to say on the flip side, I've had to learn that I always want to address stuff right away, as soon as it comes up, like, I feel this way, let's talk about it, and that is almost never what Sean wants to do, or what is even a good idea. I've had to learn to be like, okay, let's talk about this later when we're both calm. And so then we'll be sitting down somewhere and be like, hey, remember the other day when this happened? Like, let's talk about that. I have to like fight against my own nature. Like, I want to complain as soon as something bothers me. And that's what I see a lot as when couples fail is what happens. Every little thing that bothers them gets brought to the table immediately. So there's so many times where I have to decide, nope, this is not a big deal. He didn't mean to hurt me. I'm going to move on from that because it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. So it's just a little example of that sacrifice we keep referring to. Yeah, I have to remember that he's not trying to hurt my feelings by doing X, Y, or Z, and that is not what he said about it. I'm sure he makes that same decision about me all day long. So. keeping some things to yourself in the interest of being humble and being charitable.
Are there any other crash and burn things that you've observed?
Yeah, maybe in 5 years when we come back and speak to your
Okay.
class down the road, your little brothers and sisters will have good stories about crashing and burning and then rising from the ashes and all that.
Something I'd like you guys all to do, and nobody ever made me do this, and I wish they kind of would have, and I think a lot of people probably wish they would have done this. On your paper someplace, would you write down the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And I don't think I'm going to need to explain why this is a good idea. I think you're going to think this is immediately obvious why this is a good idea. Write down the names of 5 couples that you know personally, not like Hollywood couples. 5 couples that you know personally that you admire tremendously. And they could be 17 years old, 27, 37, 47, 97. They could be historical figures that you read about, but in all honesty, I really wish that they were people that you knew personally. Here's where I'm going with this. If you've got an example or a model, it's just a lot easier. Try playing your sport without a coach or without other good athletes on your team. Try becoming a good writer without being a reader. Try doing well in math class without an instructor. It's hard. I found this very hard when I tried to do this for myself. You know, of all the millions of couples, shouldn't it be easy? List 5 that you really admire. Preferably people that you know.
Yeah, I put my number 5.
I put the 2.
Hey, if 1 or 2 of yours are meant as a joke or as humor, that's great. Now put down 6 or 7.
That's not jokes, Brad is a great guy.
Tina. Yep, and B.
I put Bob and Lindsay on my list. They've been dating for like 4 years. Not 4 years. Feels like 4 years.
Hey, I have a second question for you guys.
Yeah.
Mr. Cailteux said sacrifice was a key thing in marriage. In my mind, I've got 5 things that I think are really helpful in any relationship, period. I'm especially thinking family, but I'd like to know what you think. Could you put down 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, however many things you think there need to be in order for a relationship to be excellent and long-lasting?
Oh, I got it.
Wait, what are we running now?
I was little, my grandpa was the biggest
So I saw something in the hall about like keep Bill Shakespeare on stage or give Bill Shakespeare. Like, what is that? Is everybody?
That's a play.
Yeah. Is anybody here in that? Or anybody here in anything?
We don't have any speakeasies in here, I don't think.
What's it about?
My friend is like forensics athletes are called speakies. It's like about your speaking. It's not actually William Shakespeare. It's about, I know it takes place in like a school as putting on a play. I think it's a Shakespeare play and something happens.
Play with infinity. It's fun.
My wife was in like performance art in high school and college, but I enjoy it.
But
I
I
enjoy it when I was
appreciate
in
My number 1 thing for
You mean lack of? Because it's so annoying.
it is pretty weird. I don't like it.
Thank God for the videotape. That's all I have to say.
Oh yeah.
Okay. look, you guys can come up with your own list. I heard some of these from an old priest who had done marriage counseling for about 50 years, so he'd been inside and outside of like 200 different people's marriage. I thought this was a pretty good list. He said 3 things. He said talk, work, and sacrifice amongst a couple. He hated the word communication because in the era that I grew up in, communication meant agreement, and that's not what communication really should be, so he said talk. Unconditional love means we're in it for the duration. Every time you talk to a couple that's been married for 50 years, they always say if you add up all the hard days, there was like maybe a hard year or 2 hard years. When you talk to people who got divorced, they said that they had a hard month and so they divorced. So I think that's really kind of different sometimes between couples that are married for 50 years versus couples that are married for 4 years. Fun, my parents added that. I thought that was good because when my dad read over this list, he said, gosh, that seems like a lot of work. And he's actually a pretty serious, straight-laced guy, but they've been married for 50 years, and they always emphasize fun. I thought that was good. Responsible to me means things like I have honesty, and I show up when I say I'm going to show up. Striving. Both the Cailteux mentioned goals, and I just want to mention one quick thing on goals. You know how I have you guys do a personal mission for your career? They expanded the whole thing to their life, which I think is great because if you'll notice this, the same people who are fired up about one thing in their life, like whether they're fired up about their grades or they're fired up about their sports, those same people tend to be fired up about everything in their life. You know, like they work out in the morning, you know, maybe they go to mass, their relationships are really good. So I just want to point out, I think those are my things. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Other than Claire?